episode 11 of the Var Side. And of course, this is our Var Side Spurs podcast. We're all Spurs from here on in. And we've got loads to get through today. We've got a special guest towards the end, Ben Boorman. But let's just introduce you first of all to everybody who's here today. We've got Andy Creed from the Haywards Heath Massive. How's it going, Andy?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Simon. All good.
Having a good week? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, brilliant weekend. Nothing went wrong at all. Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. And from the bright lights of Luton is our good mate was Steve Worrell. How you doing, Steve?
Yeah, doing good, Lippo.
Good, Lippo. So, Andy, you're going to kick us off.
I'll take it.
I don't thoughts on the weekend then.
Yeah, as I said, the weekend was fine. Nothing went wrong. I went to something on Saturday. I don't know what it was, but it was certainly interesting. I was looking down on this bit of grass and just trying to work out what the hell was going on, really. But
yeah, I think a few of us were. Steve, what was your take on that match?
Well, my take was that Andy has finally started his protest.
Mm-hmm.
He actually protested in the game. He walked out. He down tools walked out on 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think that gives you an indication of how badly the game was going in terms of performance.
He did. That's right, because he WhatsApped the Var Side group and told us he was already down, not eating his fish and chips in protest. So it was that bad, wasn't it? Really. And what I thought was troubling about, so many things were troubling about the game, but not least the fact that if Watford had finished better and the referee had been a little less lenient, they would have won that probably fairly comfortably.
Yep,
I think so. I think the thing for me that was worrying was the lack of urgency and in how we played. So players like Vertonghen and Alderweireld are usually really good with their passing and their accuracy with their passing, giving the ball away really easily and really cheaply. And I think Sanchez could count himself unlucky to be the one that was hooked at half time, because it could have been any one of the three central defenders that could have gone, at half time to go to a back four.
Yeah.
I thought, Danny Rose, I can't believe he managed to survive 90 minutes really on the way he played. He's lived off a lot of goodwill recently. Everyone talks about his passion and stuff like that, but his end product, poor.
Yeah, it's a kind of a sad demise of Rose, really, isn't it? He's been such a good player. Actually, when he first came into the side, everyone hated him and thought he was rubbish, and then he suddenly had this renaissance under Poch. And we thought, we've really got a player here, and we did really have a player. And I don't know whether it all started with that business when he said, time to go, I want to go. And perhaps it's a commitment thing, it's a fitness thing, it's an age thing. What do you think, Andy?
Well, he's been quite vocal about his, his mental health. I don't know whether that's affected him. He's obviously been a player that, as you say, he peaked under Poch. I think he was at Sunderland and he did quite well there. But before he went to Sunderland, he was awful. And I just think he's going back to being awful. Although I personally don't think that Rose was ever as brilliant as he's been made out to be. I think he was part of a team that he played a good part in it. But he's never been brilliant at crossing. I would say that probably Ben Davies is just as good at crossing. Maybe not as pacey as Danny, but he's certainly got the ability. So I just think that Danny has really just kind of reverted back to where he was maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, Steve, is that the way you see it with Danny Rose?
Yeah,
is it terminal?
Well, it's terminal unless Poch changes the system, I think. I think he thrived in a system where, him and, we had two flying wing backs, didn't we? Him and Walker on the other side, and that their job was to get as high as possible, as quickly as possible, and rely on their pace to help us get up the pitch and to counter-attack or to attack with pace. And we're not playing that system anymore. We're not pressing high to win the ball back as high as possible, and I think he's struggling on that basis because we're putting under a lot more pressure.
I mean, it's true, and I've been prattling on a bit this week on Twitter, well, for a couple of weeks really, about Vertonghen and Toby. Either they're past their physical peaks, or their heads are somewhere else because of contract issues. But one way or another, things are not right. To see Toby hit about 3 crosses straight out of play on Saturday was very depressing. Yeah. And Rose, I mean, I tend to agree with Andy actually. I mean, I think I never thought Rose was as great as people were making out, and I never thought he was that fast. He looked, because he's all action, because he's very physical, he looks like a player who's very quick, but actually I don't think he was that quick, because he always seemed to struggle, to me anyway, when he's got a trick or two, but then when he pushes it past his man, he does struggle to make a bit of room. And of course his crossing is, well, no better than average really, but he has, you can't deny his commitment and his dynamism. Yeah. And sadly it seems to have gone. There's been a lot of talk today on Twitter about what's been going on, particularly at the back. And Bayern Munich was we got so exposed because we were pressing up, and suddenly Toby and the whole defence looked like they were playing in treacle. Steve.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned Toby a couple of times there, and you also mentioned about the possibility of his head being turned. But for some reason, he's managed to avoid a lot of the criticism that, for example, Eriksen's got, because of the mood music that's coming out. So I think I saw someone today on Twitter saying, that he's got his PR team have got it down to a T. He comes out with the right things. He talks about being focused and going again, and everyone laps it up. But in reality, both him and Eriksen look like they're probably going to go on a free at the end of the season. They've had their minds made up about that for quite some time. Yep. And we're now possibly seeing, the implications of that, the fact how much it's disrupting the team. But for some reason, he manages to escape any flack.
He does, doesn't he? It's also, there are some whispers, of course, well, not more than whispers, about Vertonghen and some bad behaviour. And I can only, I can only repeat what I've said on Twitter, that there is I have an inside source suggesting there's a grain of truth to this, perhaps not involving Eriksen's partner, but something happened, and I wonder if that is if that is the case, then that goes to the very heart of unity and togetherness. Andy?
Yeah, but don't you also think, I mean, that might be true, and of course, if that did happen, then obviously that's never going to work out well.
No.
But the fact that Danny Rose was left behind on pre-season says to me that obviously he wasn't required for this season, and he was meant to leave. I heard that Watford came in, but he didn't want to go there. But what the truth is, I don't know. But obviously all these type of things are going to work against the positivity of the team.
Yeah.
This is where we are as a result.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Steve?
It's interesting, Andy, that you mentioned Watford, and Danny not wanting to go there, because it seemed like you liked Watford on Saturday. So he did his best to help them out.
Yeah, he liked them crossing the ball in, didn't he?
Yeah,
he played. Yeah.
But the other thing you mentioned about obviously him being left behind pre-season, but I think we've discussed it in the past. But literally all 4 of those players that started in defence, or 4 of the 5 that started in defence on Saturday, had various links and issues and speculation about them in the summer. So that tells you that something is amiss in some respect with those players, and we know that they're unsettled.
Andy?
My theory is that Poch has actually got a bet with Jesus that he can actually play these 4 and get a result. I think that's what's going on.
So, God knows how much he's wasted on that gamble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, look, there also another topic that perhaps we won't touch on too much today is, do we throw the kids in, the Foyths and the Tangangas and the Sanchez's and KWP, and we just say, look, just you guys, you're the future. Let's see what you can do. But we'll come to that in next week's Var Side. And incidentally, if you'd like to follow us on Twitter, we're at the Var Side Pod. Is that right? At the Var Side Pod. And it's our Spurs podcast. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, and we have a website, www.thevarside.com. Always interested to hear your views. We've had a lot of interesting feedback this week, and also thanks to everybody who's been kind enough to give us some encouragement and compliments about the show. Now, we have to move on to the second subject. We put out a poll this week, and it was essentially... who's the best looking Spurs footballer? And one of our correspondents said, haven't you got anything better to do, for fuck's sake? And we thought, this is just a bit of fun, chill out. And we had 230 odd responses to the poll, which meant most people thought it was a bit of fun and worth responding to. So by a country mile, and given his rather dodgy kicking on Saturday, he's withstood it pretty well. Gazzaniga, and I do have a feeling that he's too handsome to play football. He's too handsome. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, well, I'll take. Sorry, I'll take. Sorry, Andy. I know you were going to come in, but I'm definitely going to jump in there. He is one hell of a good-looking guy. He really is. But yeah. Probably too good looking to play football. I do worry that the footballers are a bit more too concerned about their looks. There's lots of times when they'll play and they'll head the ball or something, and the first thing they do is readjust their hair. They make sure it's all back in place.
Yeah.
Toby. Obviously, we've spoke about Toby already today, and his hair doesn't move.
It's solid. It's solid.
Neither does he, actually.
Not anymore. No.
I mean, the pair of them, they look the same at the beginning of a match as they do at the end, or vice versa. They don't look remotely, not a hair out of place. Vertonghen looks like to me, Vertonghen always looks like a fairly mid-ranking accountant. And as he's playing like one right now, and it's we've got Winksy. I think Winksy came second in our poll. But Gazzaniga was by a country mile. Our top man. We got a special mention for Harry Kane because some would argue that he's not God's gift. I would argue he is a Greek god, and
classically looking. Yeah.
Classical, Roman nose.
Yeah,
and the great man with the beard, of course. But I do remember. I'm thinking back, to the good old hard, ugly footballers, right? You remember someone like Tommy Smith, right? Remember of Liverpool? Yeah. I mean, he looked like whoever was carving his face out of granite. The chisel broke, and they finished it off with a fork, right? And you could just imagine him, going into training, and at the end of training, he'd get 5 of the apprentices over. And he say, all right, lads, get a ball each and smash it in my face 50 times.
Yeah.
I won't flinch. I won't blink. What about Ian Ure? Do you remember Ian Ure? I mean, that was an ugly.
Who did he play for?
Man United, Arsenal. Arsenal, of course, ugly. They're all ugly. But in the modern day, that was cruel, wasn't it? In the modern day, it's hard to think of footballers who. Peter Beardsley is the last one I can think of who just didn't give a shit that he was, let's face it, ugly. Even did his hair especially ugly to fit the face. Right now, certainly at Spurs, they're all very groomed. They all look like you'll see them coming into a match with their little bags, their new Saint Laurent bags or whatever the hell they are, and. I just wonder now. You often see them look up, don't you, at the screen, and check their hair's all right.
Yeah,
something not right.
Especially not when right. An attack's happening anyway.
Yeah,
but I'm sure they take all that video footage and post it on their Instagram and stuff like that. Yeah. So it is important, obviously, that they look really good in that moment, and that's probably the reason. Every opportunity is a photo opportunity. You can't imagine Ian Dowie doing that, could you?
No, exactly. I mean, do you remember in the 70s and 80s when the hairstyles were a bit longer and a bit more kind of all over the place, and then you